Back-to-back, a look at the repeat Big 8 champions, the 1990 Colorado Buffaloes.
The Big 8 trophy for the second year in a row. It'll stay right here in Boulder.
And we hold our own destiny once again. All we need to do is get a W and we get the big ring, something that when you show it, everybody know that you're a national champion. And that's what we want. We got 2 rings. We want the big one now. We're not satisfied. We got 1 win. We want it. Notre Dame, here we come.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mark McIntosh of News 4 Sports. Welcome to Back-to-Back, another championship season. Channel 4's celebration of Colorado's second consecutive Big 8 title. You might not know this, but Colorado is the first Big 8 school, other than Oklahoma or Nebraska, ever to win league titles back-to-back. Now, this championship season appeared much more difficult than last year's. It seemed like every ball game went down to the wire, especially the first 3, as Les Shapiro reports.
The highly successful 1989 season earned the Buffs an invitation to one of college football's premier events, the Pigskin Classic in Anaheim, California, a national TV game against another top-ranked team, the Tennessee Volunteers. And it was played to a tie. Terribly disappointing because at one point, late in the game, CU had a 2-touchdown lead. They jumped to that lead behind senior Mike Pritchard, normally a wide receiver, playing running back this day, subbing for the suspended Eric Bieniemy. Pritchard ran for a whopping 217 yards, but it wasn't enough to keep the Volunteers from vaulting back into the game. Fourth quarter, Tennessee took to the air. Quarterback Andy Kelly connecting with Carl Pickens time and again. This touchdown pass pulled Tennessee to within 7 points. And soon after, Tennessee got it in again. All-American candidate Chuck Webb ran in the tying score, and that's the way it ended, 31-31. CU began the season with a tie that, at the time, felt more like a loss.
We just have to learn from all these ups and downs we had. I think this will make us a better team in the long run.
There was speculation CU's second game of the season would be much easier than the first. After all, Stanford is not known as a football powerhouse. But oh, how those speculators were wrong. The Cardinal ran out to a 14-0 lead, dominating on offense and defense. In fact, on defense, Stanford came up with formations CU had never before seen and certainly didn't expect, and it took the Buffs quite a while to adjust. But they eventually did. In the third quarter, Eric Bieniemy, in his first game of the season, brought the Buffs to within 7 points with this touchdown run. And later that quarter, Bieniemy did it again. A 36-yard run that tied things up. The fourth quarter belonged to CU and Bieniemy also. He scored the Buffs' final touchdown, and CU got away by the skin of its teeth, beating back Stanford 21-17 for the first win of the year.
You know, when you play a top 10 team, you come out and you want to play your best. And hats off to Stanford. They came out and played one of the better games I've seen in the past few years.
Illinois had lost heralded quarterback Jeff George to the NFL, but they still had a defense full of All-American candidates, and this day they played like All-Americans. Early on, CU found some chinks in that Illini armor, storming to a 17-10 halftime lead behind the touchdown pass from Darian Hagan to Michael Simmons, but the Buffs did little else the rest of the day. Meantime, the young man who replaced George at quarterback, Chris Verduzco, cranked up that passing game. Sean Wax made a very pretty one-handed catch, and the game was tied. Then in the fourth quarter, Verduzco handed off to Howard Griffith for the go-ahead touchdown, and Illinois stayed ahead, winning 23-22. The Buffs fell to a record of 1-1-1, but it was the last time they would fall all year. On the horizon, a 9-game winning streak.
Just like it's starting all over. No wins, no tie, and no losses. That's the way it is. When everything's even across the board, you go back to the drawing board and take it from there.
The 1990 senior class has to be one of the finest in the history of Colorado football. You can name 3 consensus All-Americans right off the top. Linebacker Alfred Williams, offensive guard Joe Garton, running back Eric Bieniemy. Another senior had a stellar senior campaign, Las Vegas native Mike Pritchard. He filled Jeff Campbell's shoes as the Buffs' big play receiver. Mike Pritchard's talents didn't just appear out of thin air. They've always been there, but the chance to display them hasn't. You see, until this year, number 9 played wingback and was used primarily as a blocker in the Buffs' option attack. Eric Bieniemy's one-game suspension against Tennessee gave the Las Vegas native a chance to showcase his skills, and boy did he. 217 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. But then Bieniemy came back, and Pritchard went back to wide receiver and virtually disappeared. During the Buffs' remaining 4 non-conference games, Pritchard earned just 191 total yards, less than his one-game performance against the Volunteers.
Yeah, it was frustrating. You know, coming off of running the ball and getting my hands on the ball and going to the mode where, you know, you're a decoy or you're blocking or occasional balls thrown to you. It's frustrating, but you know, that's our system, and later on they implemented me into the offense, so it worked out.
In Big 8 play, Pritchard blossomed. The senior ended up breaking the school record for single-season receiving yardage, averaged more than 20 yards every time he touched the ball, and was elected the Buffs' most valuable player by his teammates. And maybe the most flattering compliment, he's now mentioned in the same breath as Notre Dame's amazing all-purpose player, Rocket Ismail.
Yeah, that makes me feel great. I was watching the Notre Dame game against Penn State, and you know, he's a remarkable athlete, and to get compared to him or to be in the same category as him is a pleasure.
Pritchard was a non-factor in last year's Orange Bowl, but as he says, things have changed this year.
It's going to be the biggest game of my life, and I'm going to make the best of it.
Back in September, when the Buffs stood 1-1-1, nobody was thinking about the Orange Bowl. The Buffs were just thinking about getting back on track. Game 4 took them to Austin, Texas, to take on the Texas Longhorns. And that ball game, especially the fourth quarter, looks like it was the turning point of the CU season, as Peter Rogat reports.
Deep in the heart of Texas, trailing 22-14 in the fourth, Eric Bieniemy scored from 3 yards out. And after the defense stopped the Longhorns cold, Bieniemy capped the next drive with another score, this time from 2 yards out. Texas mounted another drive, but on 4th and 11 on the CU 40, Gary Howe sacked Pete Gardere for a loss. On the next drive, Alfred Williams did likewise, this one good for a safety and 2 points. The Buffs were on the road back, courtesy of their 29-22 road win in Texas.
We're just that far away from just clicking. I think we clicked when we needed to, and it'll be tough from here on out for whoever we play.
A Washington team that remembered last year's pasting was next, this time in Boulder. Again, the Buffs trailed 14-10 in the third when Darian Hagan went 35 yards to Mike Pritchard, and then Bieniemy, 3 plays later, carried for 17 yards. 1 play later, Hagan rolled right and put 6 on the board. Buffs led 17-14. The defense stopped the comeback-minded Huskies. Tim James with 1 goal line interception, and then in the final minute, another pick, this one from Dion Figures. The Buffs prevailed 20-14. More importantly, they'd notched 2 straight wins over tough opponents.
And this right here determined our season. You know, this is a big confidence builder for the team, especially for me. Now we can focus right on the Big 8.
For the Big 8 opener at Missouri, Hagan missed most of the game with a shoulder injury, and Mike Pritchard was electrifying with a 68-yard touchdown in the second quarter, and if that wasn't enough, he caught a 70-yard touchdown pass from Charles Johnson in the fourth period. But it was this game-closing sequence that will endure. Johnson throws incomplete on first down. Bieniemy runs up the middle on second. Bieniemy again on third down. And fourth down, CJ spikes the ball, obviously just trying to stop the clock. And then on fifth down, the backup quarterback gets the score. What a mess. But the final score stood, Colorado 33, Missouri 31.
Everything told us we had another down. That's why we played for another down. We wouldn't down the ball on fourth down. The yard markers showed 3. Scoreboard showed 3.
Lost in the confusion surrounding the Missouri ball game is the performance of backup quarterback Charles Johnson. CJ, as his teammates call him, did a wonderful job of filling in for Darian Hagan all year. CJ led the team 88 yards to that winning score. But you know what? His performance didn't surprise his teammates one bit. As a backup quarterback, Gary Kubiak's earned a fine reputation for himself, rescuing John Elway and the Broncos when called upon. Charles Johnson's done the same thing for Colorado. Darian Hagan was banged up all year. Johnson was summoned frequently, and he always responded, just like his teammates knew he would.
I can recall it was actually our freshman year going to our sophomore year in spring ball when he took the team, you know, in the black and white game, 99.9 yards for the winning touchdown. That's when we knew that Charles Johnson can step in and play at any given day.
Not many backup quarterbacks get national attention, but that's just what Johnson received after the now infamous 5th down fiasco against Missouri. Lots of people forget CJ marched the team 88 yards in less than 3 minutes for the controversial touchdown.
Going into that final drive, you know, I just looked at it as another challenge. This is an opportunity for me to do something significant.
The Detroit native's as competitive as any Buff, but realizes his role is to sit and watch, yet always be ready.
I take pride in my role, the position that I'm in. It's difficult sometimes preparing, not knowing what your situation might be, if you're going to play a significant role in the game, or if you're going to play a blowout time, or if you're even going to get in the game at all. So you know, I've learned to deal with my role and accept it.
Having survived the Missouri game and fought off all the critics who suggested that the Buffs forfeit that ball game, Colorado turned its attention to Iowa State, a dangerous offensive team with one of the nation's finest running backs in Blaze Bryant. Les Shapiro tells the story.
The Buffs went into their game against Iowa State with a 4-1-1 record, and it would only improve this day. Although, as was the case the first few games, CU allowed the opponent to grab an early lead. Iowa State's initial drive, the Cyclones swirled right down the field for a touchdown. In fact, they went up 9-0, but the Buffs wore them down. Everybody had a hand in taking back this lead. Quarterback Darian Hagan to tight end Sean Brown, touchdown. Eric Bieniemy with a 1-yard plunge, touchdown. And finally, Mike Pritchard on the reverse for 30 yards. This touchdown locked up the game and locked up another win for the Buffs. They beat Iowa State 28-12 and continued to build momentum heading into the toughest part of their conference schedule.
We just went in there and made a few mistakes and they capitalized on it. But once we figured out what they were doing and we slowed, you know, gathered ourselves and began to play our techniques, we began to play better.
The Buffs took their 5-1-1 record into Lawrence, Kansas for a game against the Kansas Jayhawks. Normally not a worrisome foe, but the Kansas program had found new life recently, and on a rainy day such as this, anything can happen. But the Buffs were in no mood to fool around. For the first time all year, CU scored first in a game with a Jim Harper field goal, and the Kansas dike burst quickly. Soon after, Eric Bieniemy tore off a long run for a touchdown. He would end up with 174 yards rushing and 3 TDs. It was never a contest, and the Buffs had the momentum they needed so badly, what with Oklahoma and Nebraska coming up next.
The team was looking for a way of showing the country that we are for real. We should be ranked higher, and so we knew if we came out with a big win, it would look good on our record.
The Oklahoma Sooners came into Boulder, not the feared Sooner program of the past, but still a formidable opponent. Formidable enough to take a 14-12 lead at the half, behind this bomb from freshman quarterback Cale Gundy to Ted Long. Eric Bieniemy grabbed back the lead for CU on a long gallop, 69 yards, for the touchdown, and the Buffs would hold the lead the rest of the day. It was a shaky lead, I might add, because in the fourth quarter, Oklahoma could have taken the lead back with a 27-yard field goal. Instead, the Sooners went for it on 4th and 1. CU's Tim James came up to make the stop, and there was a violent swing in momentum here. CU took over possession, and the very next play, Darian Hagan threw long to Rico Smith. 85 yards for the touchdown. CU went up 25-17, and Oklahoma would never recover. The final, 32-23. It was time to bring on Nebraska and the game that would decide who goes to the Orange Bowl.
Last time we played them at home, we lost. In fact, I cried, and I cried. Now I got tears of joy.
You might have noticed that Blaze Bryant was not a factor in the Colorado-Iowa State ball game. In fact, this year the Buffs did a wonderful job stopping some of the finest running backs in the nation. A lot of the credit has to go to inside linebacker Greg Biekert. The young man from Longmont, from his inside linebacking position, led the team in tackles.
Mike Pritchard's move to wide receiver certainly paid off for the Buffs this year. At the same time, a less publicized defensive position change also paid huge dividends for CU. Greg Biekert moved from outside linebacker to inside and led the team in tackles.
Greg Biekert has wonderful instincts for anticipating what the offense is going to do and finding his way to the football.
The redshirt sophomore from Longmont bore the brunt of the opposition's ground attack. With All-American linebackers Al Williams and Kanavis McGee on the outside, most teams tried to beat the Buffs inside. Biekert was beat up himself, playing most of the season with a tender shoulder from the constant pounding.
You know, it's just a matter of fighting through it and, you know, just saying, well, I got to play anyway, and just kind of put the shoulder behind you as much as you can.
Biekert earned honorable mention All Big 8 honors in his first starting year. Yet the business major knows there's plenty of room for improvement, especially in his pass coverage. The Buffs were burned several times this year on passes over the middle to the tight end.
Well, the play action really hurts us because, you know, it freezes the linebackers up on the line, not knowing if it's draw or pass. And then it's a matter of just, you know, hurrying out, getting back to your drops, so it's kind of tough to do.
We talked earlier about CU's outstanding senior class. How are you going to replace Mark Vanderpool, Joe Garton, Ariel Solomon along the offensive line, George Hemingway, Mike Pritchard, Eric Bieniemy in the backfield? How about on defense? Dave McCluen and Tim James in the secondary. Tom Ruin is the punter. And we've left out two guys, Alfred Williams and Kanavis McGee. The H-Boys, the bookends, both from Houston, Texas, both great athletes, both a blast to be around.
It's going to be a long time before CU fans see two defensive players as skilled as the H-Boys. Their talents were considerable and well documented, and the two good friends were also a pleasure to be around off the field. Never one to underestimate his ability. Listen to Al Williams after the Kansas State game. He played just 2 plays at tight end, caught 1 pass, and declared himself an All-American.
Oh, you know me, I'm the Michael Jordan of college football, so I had to go up and get it.
McGee and Williams gave this team its first identity, the H-Boys, also known as the bookends. They got it all started, and McGee, as modestly as possible, reflected back on his 4 years.
We'll be highly remembered. I hope somebody writes a story about it because it will make a great story.
McGee and Williams got a lot of publicity this year, and deservedly so. McGee, once again, was All Big 8. Alfred Williams won the Dick Butkus Award as the nation's outstanding linebacker. But there was a young man who played between the shadows of McGee and Williams who also earned All Big 8 honors, defensive tackle Gary Howe.
Gary Howe had some lofty expectations of himself heading into the 1990 season.
My goal was to keep up with Alfred, and I figured if Alfred, if I kept up with Alfred, I'd get the honors Alfred did.
Al Williams led the team in sacks. Howe was second. Williams is an All-American, a towering figure. Howe is a stocky stump, but his short stature helps in rushing the passer.
That's a good advantage, being lower and everything, and boom, I can get off blocks. And I think a lot of it's just luck, having the right defense call at the right time, people forcing them to me. It's all kind of a combination of a lot of things.
Voted first team All Big 8, the Iowa native has overcome a lot of obstacles. First, a teenage battle with drugs. Then the constant voices that said, you can't play major college football. Howe never listened to the critics. His faith is strong and obvious. In fact, he writes inspiring biblical verses on the tape protecting his wrists. The 22-year-old has a sideline guardian angel, team physician Wayne Gersoff. They go through a complicated ritual before each Buff defensive series.
Well, it kind of started last year. I keep breaking my hands, which was a big thing, the last 3 years that I've been here. I never had a broken bone in my body except for my nose. And here I'm breaking, 4 fingers since I've been here. And so the thing is, I'd rub Dr. Gersoff's head for good luck. And I rub his head, he passed me on the stomach, then passed me on the butt, and I'm out there on the field,
No doubt the Buffs are losing a lot of great ball players, but Buff fans, don't worry. There's plenty of talent still left. On offense, Darian Hagan returns next year. So does center Jay Lewinberg, wide receiver Rico Smith. On defense, you have linebackers Chad Brown and Greg Biekert, free safety Greg Thomas. There's also another guy on defense who hails from Aurora Hinckley High School. All Big 8 nose tackle Joel Steed.
Buffs nose tackle Joel Steed. He looks real mean and tough in a football uniform. Yet out of pads, this guy's a pussycat, soft-spoken and polite.
That's my personality, and I guess it's good in a way because I'm a good listener, and so that's the way I am.
What he is, as a football player, is one of the nation's finest nose tackles.
He has a lot of ability. He's worked awfully hard. He's extremely strong. He's put a lot of time into the weight room. He's a 400-pound plus bencher, and he's strong in every area, works very hard. I tell you what's really helped him this year is he's lost about 15 pounds. He's playing at about 270, 275, and he's really developed into a heck of a pass rusher, and it's made him just a half step quicker. That's given him an edge.
Players at Steed's position are frequently double-teamed. Nevertheless, Steed racked up 7.5 sacks this year, third best on the team. Rushing the passer is the latest in Steed's ever-expanding arsenal. Last year, as the only sophomore starter on defense, he registered just 2 sacks, but he was a force against the run. Buff fans remember quite vividly Steed's fourth quarter stop of Jerry Godowski that snuffed a Husker drive. Steed wasn't widely recruited out of high school. A lot of college coaches said the Aurora native didn't have the foot quickness to compete at the major college level. Even Steed himself, although a first-team All-State prep performer, had reservations about his abilities.
Well, I had a little bit of doubts. You know, you watch the guys on TV and you always ask yourself, you know, am I capable of playing at that high level? And then when you get in there, it's just that you just have to do your job and execute with the team.
One person who didn't need much convincing was Vanderlinden.
And I went down and watched him in one game where he blocked a punt, picked it up and ran with it. And I said, well, that young man can play football.
Playing football is just a small portion of what Joel Steed's all about. He enjoys reading and writing poetry. That's right, the 275-pounder likes to smash running backs, then turn his attention to perfecting prose.
Yeah, it was something fun. You know, I like English and everything about it, and it was just something that I like to do, and so I like to read, you know, good books, and so it was just something I like to do.
What's a good book you read recently?
Let's see. I read Stephen King, Misery, and that was pretty good. I enjoyed that one. That's not really poetry, but still, you know, reading.
Misery. That's a good word to describe what Steed's presence means to Colorado opponents. Finally, Joel Steed was too embarrassed to recite any poetry to us, so here's a weak attempt at the Ballad of Joel Steed. Quick, strong, and agile, he'll be the Buffs' nose tackle for quite a while. That certainly makes Buff fans and Bill McCartney smile.
Joel Steed seems to always play well against Nebraska. 2 years ago, right here at Folsom Field, he had the big stop against Jerry Godowski. This year in Lincoln, 7 tackles, including a quarterback sack, as the Buffs beat the Cornhuskers and pretty much wrapped up the Big 8 title. Peter Rogat has the story.
On a cold, rainy afternoon, Colorado and Nebraska took turns giving the ball up. Eric Bieniemy fumbled 5 times, losing 3 of them. Nebraska had one big play, quarterback Mickey Joseph going downfield to Johnny Mitchell. The 46-yarder was good for 6 points and a 12-0 Cornhusker lead after 3 quarters. Then the Buffs exploded. 4 touchdowns in the final 15 minutes. Hagan hooked up with Pritchard for 19 yards, and that gave Bieniemy the chance to atone. From 1 yard out, Eric put the Buffs on the board. The CU defense held, and again the big play combo of Hagan to Pritchard came through. 34 yards to put the Buffs deep in Nebraska territory. 5 plays later, Bieniemy went over the top for the score, and Colorado led 13-12. The defensive gem of the game came on Nebraska's next possession. 4th and 3, and they go for it at their own 28, and they fall short by a yard. 5 Bieniemy rushes culminated in a 3-yard score, and Alfred Williams kept the momentum going by sacking Mickey Joseph on the next 4th and 15. Bieniemy's 4th touchdown nailed the Nebraska coffin shut. 27-12, the final score. Colorado had stunned the Nebraska faithful in Memorial Stadium and made a statement to the nation about character. In the Colorado locker room, no one stood taller than the little back with the big heart.
It was a game where it's that you hit rock bottom, then you hit the highest peak. And right now I'm at my highest peak. The team showed a lot of poise, character, and pride.
The season's final 2 games were largely ceremonial. Hagan and Pritchard put on an aerial show at Folsom Field to help whip Oklahoma State 41-22. And on the final home game for 23 sensational seniors, Alfred Williams started the day with an emotional salute to the fans and then demonstrated his greatness with a leaping catch at the tight end spot, a season-long promise from Coach McCartney, played to perfection by Al. The Buffs were back-to-back Big 8 champs.
You know, we're hyped up, and we're going to have a different attitude this year, and hopefully we'll win the Orange Bowl.
Nobody's enjoying the Buffs' consecutive Big 8 championships more than Eric Bieniemy. Bill McCartney calls the record-breaking running back the most competitive athlete I've ever been around in almost 30 years of coaching. Bieniemy set 18 school records his senior year, ending the season as the nation's second leading rusher. He flew to New York recently for the Heisman Trophy Award ceremonies. He finished third in the voting. Sounds like a storybook ending to a wonderful career. Well, not exactly. While Bieniemy excelled in football, he struggled off the field. In fact, he almost quit the team after his freshman year.
Back in those days, it was very frustrating. You know, we wasn't winning. Everybody was a long way from home. You know, as a freshman, you kind of get homesick. Then you look for every other excuse. Well, why should I leave? I can recall many times where it was that it just came down to just taking a plane to go home or just staying home after a Christmas break or so. But after I realized that, you know, why don't just stick it out? Things can get better. Then I decided to just stay here and just stick it through.
Bieniemy's off-the-field problems were never anything serious, but his minor brushes with the law were enough to keep him in the headlines when he shouldn't have been. Even after an outstanding sophomore campaign, Bieniemy was still unhappy and willing to transfer. Then came word of Sal Anesi's illness. Anesi's fight with cancer inspired Bieniemy to battle through his problems and make it work in Boulder.
I had a great factor because, you know, the type of person that he was, he could have walked out a long time ago, but he decided to stay.
Still, there's been some rough spots. McCartney suspended Bieniemy for the season opener this year after another minor off-the-field altercation. Some say McCartney's actions were too harsh. Bieniemy's never said a word. He prefers to look ahead to the Orange Bowl and keep a stiff upper lip to the past.
You know, I'm excited with everything that is going on here, through the good times and the bad times. You know, it seemed like everything just worked out for the best.
Colorado ended the season with a 9-game winning streak, and for the second consecutive year, ended the regular season as the nation's #1 team. This after falling as far as 20th after the Illinois loss. Now it's on to the Orange Bowl for a rematch in Miami with the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. The 1990 season was surely special, and to keep it fresh in your memory, here's a musical tribute to the 1990 Big 8 champs, the Colorado Buffaloes.
that sideline. The good block. One man to beat for Pritchard. He beats him. And the Buffs are in the end zone. He's got the sideline. Bieniemy ought to be able to gain some big stuff on this one. Over the middle, complete to Rico Smith for the first down. It's Michael Simmons. He backs into the end zone for a CU touchdown. Looking for him long, wide open, Mike Pritchard into the end zone for another CU touchdown. And he breaks it up the middle. There's only one man to beat, and now there's nobody to beat. To Bieniemy, one man to beat. Takes him inside, he is gone. Eric Bieniemy.
What a great, great group.
The famed Orange Bowl in Miami on a tropical January 1st evening, temperature in the mid-70s, capacity plus crowd of 80,000 fans here to witness #1 ranked Colorado in its bid for a national championship against 5th-rated Notre Dame. The Irish have won 8 titles, more than any collegiate football program, and they are here in full force. And with it, Ralphie, the Colorado mascot, makes his appearance, and here come the Buffaloes, the Big 8 champions. And a Happy New Year, everyone. With Pritchard injured, it's McClellan and Johnson back. Dave McClellan, a senior. He leads the nation in punt returns, and he's in the open. Finally gathered at the 35. Simmons in motion, the wingback. From the 35, Hagan reverse to Pritchard, breaks a tackle, has blockers. It's set up to the 50, a gain of 15 before Devon McDonald can make the stop.
But the initial drive stalled, and the Buffs were forced to punt.
Rowan bobbles the ball, and there goes field position. The Irish at the 48 of Colorado. George Williams was the first man in.
The Irish quickly returned the favor.
And here comes the sophomore Rick Meyer looking for the rocket. Intercepted. George Thomas. Greg Thomas out of bounds as Notre Dame turns it right back. Derek Brown made the tackle inside Notre Dame territory.
Notre Dame got the game's first scoring opportunity late in the first quarter, a 50-yard field goal attempt from Craig Hendrick.
This would be his career longest. It's got distance. It hits the upright, no good.
After the Notre Dame miss, the Buffs offense went to work.
There goes Bieniemy into the open. All the way to the Notre Dame 43. Like a shot. Higgins. To the 31-yard line, and another Colorado first down. It is to the fullback, and it's Hemingway inside the 10. First and goal, Colorado.
Just like last year, the Notre Dame defense got tough near the goal line. The Buffs had to settle for a field goal.
Jim Harper from 22 yards. Harper, a junior, played at LA Valley College, junior college last year, and he drives it through. Colorado takes the lead, 3-0.
Notre Dame then came back, drove 62 yards in 9 plays to take the lead.
Waters on the quick pop. He is in the end zone.
Then sophomore Ronnie Bradford made the play of his young Colorado career.
The extra point by Hendrick, and it is blocked. A big block at the midpoint of the second quarter. It's 6-3 Irish.
Misfortune struck the Buffs just before halftime. Darian Hagan left the game with a knee injury.
Well, if he is unable to play in the second half, the job will fall in the hands of Charles Johnson, a junior from Detroit. Well, Ralphie and the Colorado cheer unit trying to inspire the Buffaloes and their fans.
But it was Notre Dame who came out fired up, marching to the Colorado 4-yard line. There, the Buffs defense got tough.
Waters, no gain.
And that's a beautiful job of coming underneath everything. Paul Rose did a fine job of meeting that entire play. First he met the tight end, then the back.
That's an important call, though. Paul Rose, 46, is the backup to Canavis McGee, so McGee's shoulder must be bothering him. Full house backfield for the Irish, and Meyer changes his call. The Rocket is the right halfback. They go to Culver. Culver, no gain.
look out for a play pass here. We saw them in practice working on it. They'll fake inside and throw on the flat. There it is.
Meyer to the end zone. Off the fingertips of the Rocket, incomplete. Dave McLuhan on the coverage, and the Irish bring on the field goal unit. That was a big defensive stand on 1st and goal for Colorado. Here's Craig Hentrick, who missed 2 long tries in the first half. This one is 23 yards, and it is just good. It was hooking left, but from short range, it made a throw. So the Irish take the kickoff to start the second half, and Lou Holtz's team builds his lead by 3 more. 10 minutes left in the period. It's now the Irish 9 and the Buffaloes 3.
The Notre Dame lead didn't last long thanks to the first of several Irish second-half turnovers.
And they give to Waters right up the middle, and he gains, fumbles the ball. A scramble at the 40. Which way? Colorado says they've got it. They do.
Paul Rose made the recovery, setting the stage for super sub Charles Johnson.
They go down the middle, and wide open is the tight end. Sean Brown, first down at the 22.
Well, there was the play pass we talked about. We knew it would come sooner or later.
Johnson, complete to Hemingway. And the fullback barrels to the 12, close to a first down. 3rd down and inches. Wide open. John Bowman, the tight end, to the 4.
3 plays later, the Buffs hit pay dirt.
This to take the lead. Bieniemy. Touchdown. And now Jim Harper will attempt to give Colorado the lead here late in the 3rd period. And 9, the Buffaloes lead with 4:26 remaining in the 3rd.
After another Irish turnover, the Buffs went for more in the 4th quarter.
Johnson guns it downfield, has a man. It's Pritchard, first down.
The drive ran out of gas. The Buffs went for the field goal, trying to up their lead to 4 points.
36 yards. Harper was good from 22. It's blocked. George Williams does it for Notre Dame.
Late in the game, with time running out, the Rocket almost ruined the party.
I'm sure Rowan will kick out of bounds. He'll punt out of bounds. He has to.
First priority is to get the kick away. The Irish will send 10 men. And then they back off. Well done. The Rocket at the 10. And he's corralled for a moment. Breaks into the clear. One man to beat, and he won't get him. The Rocket Ismail has done it again. Touchdown, Notre Dame.
I see a flag, Dick. I see a flag.
There is a flag down at the Notre Dame 37, so hold on.
A Notre Dame penalty nullified the touchdown. Seconds later, the Buffs defense secured Colorado's first national championship.
Intercepted by Colorado. Dion Figures. And Figures runs out the clock. And the Figures may be #1 for Colorado.
And that closes the ball game. Colorado 10, Notre Dame 9. Congratulations to the Colorado Buffaloes.
#1. First in my career, we started out 0-4 when I got there. Now to say that we're #1 in the country, winning the Orange Bowl, national championship, I mean, it's the greatest feeling.
Hey, we did it. We came out here,
We got our quest.
Champs, #1. Oh yeah, #1 right here. No doubt.
I'm just hoping somebody isn't going to wake me up right now and it is going to be a dream.
It was breathtaking. It was unbelievable.
To senior Lamar Gray, it was overwhelming. Ultimately, the madness shifted to the team's hotel.
Our #1 in the nation, boy. Film at 11. #1.
The party lasted all night. Memories of the Buffs' first national championship will last forever.
I think you got to give a lot of credit to our defense holding that team to 9 points, because that team is very prolific. And then, of course, we were lucky there. They clipped on Rocket's run back, but you got to give our kids a lot of credit. We've come back all year, and we feel great right now.
Indeed, they did get a second chance, and they have made a first impression. And you know that in Rocky Mountain country, the cry is reverberating